Welcome to Tāwara o Te Wai, Water New Zealand's podcast series. This past month was Plastic Free July, so that's why in this discussion, we're focusing on the enormous, seemingly insurmountable problem of plastic pollution in our waterways. We know that this is a global crisis and that it's not an exaggeration to say that plastic pollution has reached catastrophic levels in our water environment. I'm Debra Harrington, and joining me today to talk about this is Mike Hanna from Stormwater 360. Mike's known to many in the water sector. He's developed a device that prevents litter, including plastics, from going into our stormwater systems and, of course, out into the ocean. Also joining us is Helena Ruffell from Canterbury University. Helena recently completed a study on the amount of microplastics, those are the plastic pieces smaller than 5 millimeters, that go into the ocean from our wastewater system. To do this, she focused on 3 wastewater treatment plants in Canterbury. And also with us is Liz Butcher from the Ministry for the Environment. Liz has been working on developing the policies around plastic reduction. So if I just start by maybe throwing a question to all of you, there's been all sorts of figures and guesstimates around how much plastic ends up going in the ocean. We know it's a huge amount, and it's been said that at the rate we're going, there'll be more plastic than fish in the ocean. Is anyone optimistic that we can prevent that scenario from happening? Anyone like to start with that?
Us off.
Yeah.
So there was actually a 2020 study which looked at if we followed ambitious efforts to reduce plastic in our daily lives, about 53 million metric tons of plastic per year will enter the aquatic environment. So this is in freshwater and marine environments. However, if no waste management improvements were made in the amount of plastic that we're using, we would be looking at about 90 million metric tons of plastic entering these aquatic environments. So that's freshwater and coastal environments every year. So even if we did stop now, there's still going to be a lot going in because as long as we have plastic, there's always going to be mismanagement of waste, unfortunately.
So it's not looking very optimistic at all, is it? I mean, even if we, as you say, even if we stop now, we're going to end up with oceans full of plastic for hundreds and hundreds of years.
It's similar to climate change doomsday scenarios. You know, we're in a situation where there is so much plastic material being used in our daily lives. And we don't have the infrastructure to management, and we're almost addicted to plastic. And it's been great for development of society, but we need a full societal change really about how we do it. And so that it's like climate change. We can't say it's too much. We have to get going and start doing stuff about it. Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping to talk to Liz a bit later on about exactly what we are doing. But Mike, if you look overseas, you've been working in California and looking at this and the stuff that you've been doing. There's been a lot. That's the work that you've been doing is over there. They take it a lot more seriously, would you say, than we do here in terms of stopping
definitely. As you said, we've developed technology, and we had a vision that we were, it's very simple. It's affordable for businesses. We're really focusing around businesses. That we had a real hope that business would adopt it on a wide scale in New Zealand and stop the plastic. But we found it's really hard to get uptake when it's kind of voluntary. And California has looked to regulate the management of plastic throughout the whole state on different levels. They started in early 2000s, looking at the impact that plastic was having on their waterways and monitoring that. And no surprise, it was greatly affecting what they call beneficial uses of their resources. So that's whether it's leisure and hanging out at the beach and entertainment, or even to fishing resources and et cetera, and tourism. And so they realised that it was impacting that, and they started implementing a wide suite of measures, including reduction and banning plastic bag bans. They implemented a zero pallet loss from factories and industries, and and also had an ambitious plan to address stormwater, because the discharges of trash and debris through stormwater lines, because they generally untreated and they go straight through even to the waterways. And so they they have a regulatory system around stormwater discharges, where every stormwater discharge or network is permitted, similar to New Zealand's kind of stormwater discharge consents. And they said, well, we never used to thought this was a contaminant or a problem, or when we implemented these controls, well, two areas actually had identified, San Francisco Bay and Los Angeles had identified that trash was a problem on their waterways, and so they actually set some regulation around managing it. And those two cities or areas or regions were actually demonstrated that you could intervene and capture close to 100% or 100%. That was the goal. And priority areas, where you deemed areas that you needed to manage, where most of the trash is coming off.
That's the plastics that are going through the stormwater that we can see, isn't it? I mean, I know that you've...
well, trash and debris, not about 80%, or it varies, of trash or litter is a plastic materials. So they looked at macroplastics as well. They've implemented microplastics such as the plastic bead bans.
Microplastics is an emerging issue, isn't it? Something we're just realizing now. And Helena, how seriously do we need to look at the microplastic stuff as well as the macro? This is the stuff that's going through our wastewater treatment plants. So we've got the stormwater side plus the wastewater side as well, haven't we?
Yeah, so for my master's research project, I looked into 3 wastewater treatment plants in Canterbury. So I collected influent as well as effluent to try and compare and have a look at what's actually happening throughout the wastewater treatment plant. So I found on average there was about 2.4 microplastics per litre in influent, and this reduced down to 1.3 microplastics per litre in effluent. So it's suggesting that the microplastics are being retained somewhere throughout the wastewater treatment plant. And this, of course, is happening with the sludge. As the sludge is being removed from the water fraction, the plastics are concentrating in the sludge. So even though there is this removal happening, there's still a significant amount of microplastics in the effluent. So I estimated that there's probably about 240,000 microplastic particles entering the Canterbury coastline every day. And because wastewater is such a persistent discharge, this is occurring every day, and the plastics are just building up and building up. A lot of the time I couldn't distinguish what it was from. Normally I got quite a lot of random fragments. So this is from larger plastics which have broken up into smaller pieces into these secondary microplastics. So they were quite random, irregular fragments of all different shapes, sizes, and polymer types. But quite often I could figure out where they were from. So I also got a lot of fibers, which is from every time we wash our synthetic clothing and textiles like carpets, furnishings, blankets. It releases thousands and thousands of fibers into the washing machine effluent, which is then directed to wastewater treatment plants. I also, interestingly, got quite a few microbeads. So the study was from 2018 and microbeads were banned in New Zealand in 2018. So I definitely was expecting to see some in there, but for my PhD work now, I'm looking at biosolids, and these samples are from this year, and I'm continuing to find microbeads. So that's kind of interesting to see how effective that microbead ban is going.
So do you think the microbeads are just because they've been there since 2018, or have they been getting through our system somehow?
I think it's both. So I think maybe from people importing, sneakily backdoor imports of microbead containing products as well. Unfortunately, but I've also been getting quite a lot of glitter. A lot of people don't realize that glitter is actually made of plastic. So every time you wash your kids' clothes, which are covered in glitter, or you have makeup, which has got glitter in it, it ends up going down the drain. And a recurring theme is kitchen sponge fragments. So I get heaps of kitchen sponge fragments coming into my samples as well. And I guess it kind of makes sense if you think about it. Your kitchen sponge starts to like look a little bit manky up over time and lose little bits and pieces. So those are all polyurethane. So yeah, all of those are going out into the environment.
So, and just sort of heading back to Mike, sorry, Mike, I hope I didn't cut you off too soon before, but so, you know, you're looking at the macroplastic again, but microplastics, obviously, that's a big issue, isn't it?
Yeah, well, microplastics are a lot more because they're finer, they're more bioavailable, and the science so far is pretty scary. But macroplastics is in terms of a mass of actually material that's escaping into the waterways is significantly higher. So both ends, and the macros do with UV light, the thoughts are generally it's breaking down, and also you have there's macro and there's micro, what we're talking about through the wastewater system, but there's also that interrange between 500 microns and 5 millimeters. That's a big chunk, and I know lots of people have caught fish around the waterways of New Zealand, around the bays in New Zealand, and found fish, plastic pellets and pieces of plastic inside the fish that they're catching in their stomach. Long term, we need to address it fully at the source and change behaviour, and there's a lots of thought being put into, but you go walk down the aisle of the supermarket and you just think, how are we going to get rid of all that plastic?
Yeah, I agree.
It's immense.
That's right.
So.
I don't know, with Plastic Free July just finished. I mean, I've tried in the past to not buy plastic, but it's impossible. It's impossible. Everything we seem to be addicted, or manufacturers are addicted to wrapping their produce in plastic. So Liz, I mean, it is a big problem, isn't it? And you've been putting a lot of thinking in at policy level. Could you just bring us up to date with what is happening? What we're doing to tackle the whole range of products and single-use plastics, because there is a lot of work going on in that area, isn't there?
Sure. Yes, there is a lot of work going on in that area. So we have quite a large work program underway on plastics. As Helena touched on earlier, we banned microbeads back in 2018, and that was closely followed by the single-use plastic shopping bag ban in 2019. That ban has resulted in around 1 billion fewer plastic been produced and entering in our environment each year since that ban. We are now following that up with some further bans on other single-use plastics and problematic packaging types. So these are plastics like plastic number 3, which is PVC, and plastics number 6, which is polystyrene for food and drink packaging, which can't be recycled here in New Zealand, and they contaminate our recycling system and make it kind of harder to recycle some of those higher value materials that can be recycled more readily. And so these phase outs will happen across kind of 3 stages between now and 2025, with that first stage coming into force in October this year. We also last year released our very first National Plastics Action Plan, and this plan builds off some recommendations that were made by the Office of the Prime Minister's Chief Science Advisor in a report called Rethinking Plastics in Aotearoa, New Zealand, which was released in late 2019. The plan is already underway. It brings together a range of different actions, including some things that we already had in progress, like looking at how we can introduce regulated product stewardship, which would require producers and manufacturers packaging to take more responsibility for that packaging at the end of its life.
How would that actually work?
It's likely to be paired with some sort of regulation that would mean that products sold in plastic packaging and the scope for this regulated product stewardship work is plastics in packaging from resin types 1 through to 7, so all types of plastic packaging would be required to sell their products in accordance with a product stewardship scheme. So that would mean that they have to have an end of life option like recycling and some sort of recovery and collection system to be able to take those that packaging back at the end of its life.
Plastics, even good quality plastics, can only be recycled so many times, can't they? And then they end up obviously going to landfills at some point, or turning into clothes and becoming microplastics in the ocean, once they've gone through the washing machines and the wastewater treatment plants.
Yes, yep, that is right. First of all, we have to take a kind of a waste hierarchy approach. So if you think about that is refusing plastic where we can, reducing the amount that we are consuming, and then looking at how we improve things like recycling systems so that we can recover the materials that we do need to use and keep those circulating throughout our economy for as long as possible. So our National Plastics Action Plan is based on kind of the vision of less plastic, more circular. So, keeping those materials moving and being able to use them for as long as possible, and better for the environment. So where we do need to use plastic, sometimes it may be the best material for a particular use. But making sure that plastic that we do use is safe, and that we have the systems in place to be able to manage it.
So, Mike, what do you think about that plan? Do you think that we're heading in the right direction?
Yeah. My concern is like, how long is that going to take? Right now we're at a level where the environment's being seriously impacted. And there's measures which California is demonstrating, that can be implemented immediately. Well, actually, they were fair. They gave what they did. I was in half in my ramble before. They went to everyone with a resource consent and said, well, we didn't think plastic was an issue before, or trash was an issue before, but we now know it is. So we're giving you 5 years to think about how you're going to manage your plastic. And they did a lot of background research and supported all the councils and the municipalities, and they costed what it would cost. It was roughly $10 a person, more than what they're currently spending, and 40 million people in California. So they thought that was reasonable. And they gave councils 5 years to come up with a plan and 10 years to implement it. So they're at about year 10 right now, and they've given the councils, because of COVID and everything, another 5 years. They started with the biggest councils first because they're the biggest polluters, and they gave them a shorter time frame to get things done. And they're in it. They're doing it. It's a visual difference and a real difference. They're building infrastructure. What's really interesting though is also their approach. It's not about just putting in traps and devices like what we provide. They gave councils and municipalities 2 options. You could do track 1, which was putting proven certified devices in, or they could go track 2, which would be using non-structural soft engineering like education, more engagement with and cleanup, street sweeping, as well as using traps. But there was a requirement that they had to demonstrate it was as good as using structural engineered devices as well. So they set a benchmark of performance, and they said, we don't really know how to do it yet, but there's a constant monitoring and reporting phase to learn how to do it. So some cities, councils that don't have a lot of pollution are really going down that non-structural method way, and street sweeping is really a big thing that a lot of people are doing. More effort in just getting the trash off the streets before it rains. It only rains 3 times a year, so they've got the ability to do that in some parts. But yeah, they're really just being really proactive, and they've given everyone time, and they costed it, and councils are going to back to their getting the mandate to raise rates $10 a person or what, as well, and they're making a real difference, as well as all the longer term change of behaviour, change of resource, that in the way we use plastic at the same time. So that's what I'm very impressed with what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess the problem is, when we're looking at plastics in the ocean, it's a global problem, isn't it? And I think you mentioned that earlier, Helena, around, microplastics can travel huge distances. So, we can work at micro level, and obviously we have to, but the big problem is going to be, what happens internationally. And I think, Liz, we've been working internationally, haven't we, on treaties. New Zealand's been part of that, hasn't it? You're trying to reduce plastic consumption around the world.
Yes, that's right. So earlier this year at the United Nations Environment Assembly, countries, including New Zealand, agreed to a resolution that sets out the parameters for negotiations on a new legally binding instrument to end plastic pollution. So that UNEA decision covers the full life cycle of plastics from production through to disposal, and that also includes microplastics. So New Zealand will be upcoming negotiations. The very first meeting for that negotiation process will kick off in November this year, and the expectation is that the final meeting will take place at the end of 2024. So there is some ambitious timeframes, but a real opportunity to collaborate and work together at a global level to be able to make some changes towards addressing some of the plastic pollution problems.
Helena, do you think that's, tackling the plastic pollution issue that we've got, microplastics as well, internationally, is that the way to go? I know you've been very focused on around the New Zealand coastline, but, it is, as you say, it's plastics travel the world.
I agree. We should be looking at more internationally, and also what we're doing in New Zealand, and support really awesome national movements like the product stewardship, like Liz was talking about, the container return scheme, where we would have bottle deposit systems, and also the really awesome mahi of the Kiwi Bottle Drive and takeaway throwaways, who are looking at banning all sorts of packaging related with takeaways and just reducing the waste that we have as well. Yeah.
Do you think businesses are, the businesses that produce plastic, that make money out of packaging and plastic, how are we going with that? And it took a little while to get the oil companies around, accepting climate change. Do you think that the companies, and this might be,
we work with the plastics industry quite closely, and different, and New Zealand, Canada, and Australia as well, and they're very well aware of the issue, and they're really trying to get on board. Those are the members of the plastics industries, but there's a lot of other factories that might not be as much as part of the plastics industry, the smaller mum and dad type factories and things like that. And they're trying to do their best, but they need, some of them need to be more forced as well, so like anything, there's good and bad people. There's people that won't do it, and there's people that are gladly getting on board, but the few that are not necessarily addressing their issues, their management well, are often getting away with it quite badly. In the US as well, they have a strict liability on a lot of these environmental laws, and some non-for-profits have been suing some of the large plastic manufacturers and about their pallet loss, and that's seen a lot of action with a lot of them, and they've got a bill in front of Congress right now where they're going to regulate loss of pallets from factories, and we do talk about, I talk about trash and people's awareness from public spaces, but the factories and industries is where a lot of plastic leakage happens, and it's not as a form of littering. It's actually people just doing their job, and systems. It wasn't thought of an issue. If you're cutting a pipe and you're dropping fine little bits of powder there, you give it a half sweep up, or wind blows and it just off into the environment it goes. So a bit of management around those industrial system premises is something that can easily make a big difference.
Yeah, Liz, with your policy work, do you get much pushback from the manufacturers or the people that use plastic for their goods?
I would say it's probably a mix. I think public sentiment is really behind change, and so that is driving businesses to want to do better and to collaborate, for example, probably more now than ever before. So I'd say it's probably a mix.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, is there anything that you think, what's the key thing that you would like us to take away from this discussion? Maybe start with you, Helena.
Yeah, so again, as long as we have plastic, there will always be mismanagement of this plastic waste in some way or another. Like, even if you think about, you could have the most robust recycling system in the world, but I saw last week with all the rain and heavy winds, everyone's recycle bins on the ground and plastic all over the road. Like, that's not going to get collected. So I think we need to seriously think about reducing the plastic that we do have in our lives and thinking about alternative materials, or even, do we need these products to exist? So I think, really, really hard product bans and regulations need to be done. Need to turn off that tap of the overflowing bathtub, stop the plastic from even getting into the environment.
Would you agree with that, Liz?
I think that's quite a complex question, but I would say that change needs to happen across, a range of different levels. Like we said earlier, there's no silver bullet to really tackle plastic pollution. It is going to require lots of different policy initiatives, from regulation that central government can and bring about, to individual actions, which could be as simple as, making an effort to take your reusable cup or to take a reusable container. So I don't think there's one answer. I think it's going to take lots of different actions across a range of different players within the system.
So, Mike, it really is around making sure that education in the end is probably one of the most important things we can look at, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we're all getting quite well aware of the issue, though.
Yeah, we are aware. I guess it's
we need to get more action and get really serious about it. Give people timeframes. As Liz said, the public opinion's behind it. What's happening is good. Call me impatient. I've been singing about it for 20 odd years. It just continues to get, nearly 30 years actually, it continues to get worse and worse and worse. And we need some action really fast and set some targets that quite ambitious, and give people time and say get it done.
So thank you all, Mike, Liz and Helena, for your time and taking part in this discussion. Ngā mihi nui.